Alright, so do you guys think that the author's choice in Friends negatively or positively impacted his life?
Trevor here. I definitely think it positively impacted his life because in the early years of elementary school, he had a group of friends where each Friday night they'd go and hang out. And he had a lot of fun doing that because he had like friends and he could share stuff with him and he felt like he was a part of something. And then later on in life, Jordan, where he would meet his best friend, he was met with a car accident and he passed away. This really made him like he couldn't go through life anymore without Jordan because he had no one to go through it with. If that in a sense.
Tyler here. I say it positively impacted his life because like being bullied in his early years of school, that kind of took him out of everything and made him more self-centered and like made him want to just keep to himself more. So the friends that he finally did make, I feel like that kind of started to change his life around. But unfortunately, there were unfortunate and tragic events that kind of followed that, which led him to be uh, alone and keep to himself more.
Yeah, Natalie here, and his friends were basically like the only ones that were helping through like the tough times he was going through, and like he didn't really feel at home. But when he was at Jordan's house, he felt like that was more his family than like his own. So they made the best like positive impact on his life.
Hannah here. And when he was friends with Jordan, they looked forward to a lot of things like high school. They were planning on doing all these things, so having that friend like made him look forward to things in his life.
Yeah, and that also follows with his dad being a drunk and he wasn't really there for most of his life. Knowing that he had friends and people to go to kind of made it seem like he wasn't really disowned in a way, but he had another quote unquote family to himself.
Okay, do you guys think as a teenager that Kevin understood what depression was or that he had it?
I really think that he didn't know what he was going through because he was, 12, 13 years old?
Yeah.
When he was experiencing this stuff. And as a young kid, it's really, really easy to let this slip by without careful consideration and just say, oh, I'll get over this, or I'm just like not having a good day. But those bad days turn into bad weeks and then bad months. And then it turns into more serious things like suicidal thoughts because you feel like you're the only one going through this stuff and you don't know what it is. And it's a really scary thing to go through as an immature child.
This is Tyler. I kind of think of the moment that he did find out what depression was kind of when he wrote the poem for Alan York, his high school counselor. And like Alan really shared his journey through life with him. And I feel like that personal connection really like moved Kevin and was like, well, I feel like I have problems now. Or not now, but he's had problems and he can really talk to them about them with him.
This is Hannah. Kind of going back to what Trevor said, I feel like he didn't really label himself as having depression when he was a younger kid. He just kind of knew that he wasn't happy and like he was just not normal.
This also has to do with the older people in your life need to surround you. If they see you're going through stuff like this, they need to get you and talk to you about it because they need to teach you what depression is and what those feelings really are so they don't go by unseen. And that kind of follows up with his dad not being there for him, not being able to teach him all this stuff, and just like not being that parent that everyone would really want.
Like when I was reading it, I felt like there was like a domino effect that kind of took place in all the events. So it's like, okay, well, first he starts getting bullied, and then later on his best friend Jordan dies in a car accident, and then later on after that, his parents eventually end up getting a divorce. So I feel like bad event after bad event after bad event leads to someone that it's really hard for them to talk about positive things that are going on in their life when everything seems like it's just bad.
Yeah, Hannah here. I agree with what Tyler said. I think that Kevin didn't really see the world for its beauty until he was really out of the middle of his depression. And as Kevin was going through his struggles, I feel like he was just kind of in a rut and didn't really know how to truly be happy. And he had to heal and learn to accept himself, and which did take time, but only then could he realize and appreciate the positive things in his life.
Yeah, Natalie here, and also his purpose of the book was to inform people of the hard things he was going through and what made it worse, and not necessarily what made it better, except for a few things, but he just wanted to show what he had to go through and not really exactly show the good thing that came into his life, except for the kids he had that as his friend when he was younger that helped him mainly and were the bright parts of his life. But then after that it just went downhill, so he didn't really have much positive things to talk about.
Why did the author write this book in a humorous way?
Parker here. So Kevin Briel discusses depression, and that's a very sensitive and painful topic, and he takes it at a perspective with no filter, and his sort of colloquial informalness creates a more enlightened mood instead of such a sad and darkened aspect of the book. So also it connects with the audience more.
Hannah here. The book sheds a light on a lot of serious topics that I feel sometimes are kind of taken light of or aren't usually discussed. But even Kevin didn't really see the severity in the way he was feeling at first. He didn't label it as depression. But I feel the way he avoided his problems or minimalized them could come across as humorous.
Another thing that he did to make this quote-unquote humorous was he would drop the F-bomb and cuss a little bit, and also he would talk about serious topics and serious situations in a way that it was taken from a teenager. It could be taken in a humorous way where it's it's supposed to be a serious situation, but it's turned into something a little bit less serious.
So why would the author compare an addictive drug like heroin to his love for a girl?
This is Hannah. Kevin didn't have many good experiences with his peers, especially with girls. But as a teenage boy, whether he had depression or not, would have a natural attraction to girls. But because he never had the best luck, I'm sure it really scared him to have these types of feelings. But drugs may make some people feel really good, but it doesn't last and can lead to a buildup of more pain. And in Kevin's eyes, I feel that's how he viewed love. It may come across as something that makes you feel really good and happy inside, but really only causes him more pain.
I think you got to look at who he liked specifically, which was Vanessa. And in this case, so many other guys liked her. So I think it was a method in order to just fit in with everyone else and be a part of something.
Okay. Another thing, this is Trevor. Another thing is that he was in love with this girl, and that, like Parker said, a lot of other people were in love with this girl, and he just wanted to feel a part of something. That loving her was cool and all, but it also came with the guilt of he's doing it just to fit in, and also that he could easily be hurt because he's pretty vulnerable right now. The way that she made him feel, and her looks, her personality, and when they would hang out and stuff, that would be considered as the quote unquote good part of heroin. And then when she went to that party and he saw her making out with other dudes, she wanted 12 boyfriends. After she was making out with 12 dudes, Kevin actually saw her do that, and that could be portrayed as the addictiveness of heroin and the stuff that it makes you do. And heroin is really looked down upon because it's a really extreme drug that people can get addicted to really easily.
And the reason he went for someone easy is because he was doing it as more of a self-defense mechanism. At first, he thought love was just a way to the bedroom, but he decided it was a way to bridge himself and fix his own brokenness and make himself feel better of everything else that was going wrong.
So why do you think Kevin always kept dismissing Alan York's advice?
Tyler here. I think Kevin kept dismissing his counselor's advice because he would just end up going for like once or twice a week, and then he'd end up not going for 3 weeks or so, and this really kept Alan on edge about him and kept on trying to bring him in to talk about it.
Parker here. A lot of that had to do with the difficulty it is to face these problems and issues within his life, so he avoided them instead of dealing with them because he thought it would be easier that way.
Kind of adding on to that, he kind of did end up literally running away from that, how he felt like Alan was getting a little too close to him, which he did. He set a really good example of kind of opening up to him and giving him personal examples of how he got through his life journey, like being a big druggie and being stabbed by a drug dealer and stuff like that. So this really kind of like made Kevin open his eyes up to him. But like once he wrote a poem that kind of like expressed his depression in a way, which kind of put Alan York on like a defense side of it, I guess. And so this really showed that he was depressed and made his counselor want to get more involved in his life. And Kevin took that the wrong way and wanted to transfer schools after that because he felt like he's getting too involved. Kevin says that life is beautiful, so why doesn't he talk more about what he loves and treasures in life?
This is Hannah. This kind of goes back to when we were talking about the author going into detail about the positive things in Kevin's life. I feel like when there's so many things in your life that you think are going wrong, it's hard to find the positive when you're in the middle of it, and sometimes it takes a while for you to be able to look back into the beauty in the mess. And it's kind of like when you're mad or in a bad mood, it can be hard for really anything to make you smile or make you happy because you're just so consumed in being upset. So while Kevin was just drowning in his depression, it was hard for him to always be able to open up and just really see the beauty that was around him.
So this is kind of a personal experience. Not really an experience, actually, more of just a personal thought. There's a artist named Lil Peep. He passed away from an overdose of a drug recently, and one of his songs is called "Life Is Beautiful." This song kind of portrayed that he kind of gave up on life, and he totally disregarded all the bad things in his life because he didn't want to live anymore. So he put all that aside and only looked at the beautiful things in life. But even with then, so I think all of this is portraying that he's kind of given up on life and he just doesn't really have a care anymore for all the bad stuff. That he's really only looking at the good stuff, and that's why he says life is beautiful, which is one of his songs. Trevor here. If Kevin wanted to be accepted so desperately, why didn't he just accept himself?
Hannah here. I feel like it's a vicious cycle because of the things going wrong around him, or like the lack of people telling him that he's worth it. He was always desperate for that one person to just completely believe in him and accept him for the mess that he was. But because he didn't feel like he had that person by his side, he felt like he just wasn't worth it and didn't believe or accept himself. But again, because he didn't accept or necessarily love himself, that thirst for someone else to never really left him.
After reading the book, what do you think the author's primary point of view is on people who suffer from depression?
I think like the main takeaway he wants the audience to get is that if you do have depression or like you have the kind of thoughts that like constantly make you sad or make you think that you have depression, that you should talk to someone or just try to find someone that can relate to you, or if someone offers help, just take the advice and get help, because otherwise it's going to be really hard to get out of.
And a lot of people are there to help you, and a lot of people do go through this stuff, so you're really not alone. Like, having depression, one of the things is you really feel like no one's there for you, but if you're thinking those thoughts, you're probably not taking or letting people know how you're feeling. Because trust me, people are there to give you help. They're there to be behind you every step of the way. It's your job to take their help at that point.
He also wants you to be more self-acceptance of yourself.
The book really explores what it means to struggle and explains that a meaningful life isn't found in being perfect and being normal or like other people around you. It's about finding the ability to heal and accept the dark parts of ourselves.